This is Leader Time by FedNet. Your podcast source for remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor during the 119th Congress. Thune began the week of May 5th addressing Small Business Week. Intentions for making provisions of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent as the Senate looked ahead to more action on resolutions to rescind regulations. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, this is Small Business Week, a time to celebrate the entrepreneurs and innovators in our communities, the farmers and ranchers, the sons and daughters carrying on the family business. These hardworking Americans are the backbone of our economy and a sign that the American dream is alive and working. Mr. President, small business is a big deal. And the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are working hard to deliver for America's small business owners. One of our top priorities this year is making the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. TCJA did a lot for small businesses. Lower tax rates, the 199A small business deduction, and bonus depreciation and other investment incentives lowered small businesses' tax burden and encouraged them to invest in themselves, hire more workers, and in turn grow our economy. And that's what happened. After the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, we saw businesses buying new equipment. They hired new workers. Paychecks got bigger. It was good for small business, good for American workers, and it led to a very strong economy before the pandemic. But, Mr. President, many of the law's provisions are expiring at the end of this year. And if we don't extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, small businesses will face a $600 billion tax hike in 2026. Republicans do not intend to let that happen. But we don't just want to extend the TCJA's provisions. We want to give small businesses certainty by making these pro-growth tax policies permanent. Because permanence will encourage long-term investment. It will encourage growth. And it will maximize our economy's potential. According to one estimate, making the 199A deduction permanent would lead to 1.2 million more jobs per year. And that number would grow larger as the years go on. And that's just one pro-growth, pro-small business provision in the law. Mr. President, in addition to making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, President Trump has also prioritized restoring American manufacturing. The tax code is a key part of that. Investment incentives like bonus depreciation help manufacturers purchase the latest technology and grow their workforce with good-paying jobs for the American people. And more manufacturing, more businesses and jobs here in America grows our tax base. And that means more revenue. Revenue that we get the right way, which is with a bigger and stronger economy, not bigger tax bills. Mr. President, we have an opportunity to help turn the page on the Biden economy and set up our country for long-term economic strength. And we can do that by delivering on the President's tax priorities and making his first-term tax success permanent. Mr. President, another one of our small business priorities is regulatory relief. When I meet with South Dakota business owners, I often tell them to let me know how we can help, even if sometimes that means getting out of the way. And often that's what the government needs to do, get out of the way. And that's what we've been trying to do this year. Congress has blocked a number of burdensome Biden-era regulations through the Congressional Review Act. And we have more Congressional Review Act measures planned for this week. For example, we passed resolutions blocking Biden administration rules on commercial refrigerators and freezers and walk-in coolers. These are rules that would have driven up costs and reduced choices for small businesses. One standard had a payback period, if you can get this, of 90 years, meaning a small business would start saving money almost a century after purchasing an appliance. Mr. President, that's absurd. And it's just one example of the regulatory burdens Congress is working to lift off of the backs of small business owners. The Trump administration is also working overtime to rescind a host of bad Biden-era rules that would place heavy burdens on small businesses. Farmers, ranchers, and landowners will be pleased to know that the EPA has initiated a more collaborative process with stakeholders as it considers an alternative to the Biden administration's WOTUS rule, or Water of the United States. And the administration and Congress have been working to repeal anti-energy Biden regulations and unleash American energy dominance to ensure we have an affordable and reliable energy supply for years to come. Mr. President, strong small businesses mean a strong America. I'll always be grateful for the lessons I learned getting my start working in small businesses. During the summers, my parents, who were educators, ran a motel in my hometown of Murdo. And as is common in a lot of small businesses, the whole family helped out. Later on, my first job was as a busboy at the Star Family Restaurant. I later graduated to a cook. I learned a lot there, including what it took to keep the business running day to day and week to week. Mr. President, small business owners work hard in pursuit of their dream. They create opportunity and jobs, and they bear the heavy responsibility that comes with signing the front of a paycheck. I know that small businesses have been facing a number of challenges lately, and my aim is always to do everything I can to help. And I look forward to continuing to work with my Republican colleagues here in the Senate to support and strengthen small businesses. Because when small businesses succeed, Mr. President, we all succeed.
Schumer focused on the impacts of President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs on small businesses, Trump's stance on the Constitution, and air traffic control issues.
So just a few moments ago, I joined with some of my Senate Democratic colleagues to stand with a group of small business owners who are living every day with the wreckage of Donald Trump's economic agenda. And let me tell you, these small business owners are not partisans. Some of them support the president. Many of the business owners I've stood with in New York support the president. But right now, all of them are watching their livelihoods go up in smoke. Donald Trump's reckless trade war is economic arson, and it's Main Street that's getting scorched. In a few weeks, Donald Trump's tariff tax has jacked up prices, smashed supply chains, and forced small shops to make impossible choices, raise costs on their customers, lay off workers, or shut their doors for good, which some, unfortunately, are doing. While Trump's billionaire buddies get private meetings to go beg for exemptions, America's small business owners are left out in the cold, forgotten, ignored. They don't have Donald Trump's phone number. Nope. As many know, this is National Small Business Week. 35 million businesses in this country employ nearly 60 million Americans. And I heard my friend, the Republican leader, talk about it being National Business Week, National Small Business Week. Well, I'd say to my Republican colleagues, if you really want it to be National Small Business Week, put our legislation on the floor that exempts small business from the tariffs. That will make small business happy. An idle celebration while they're being smashed with tariffs doesn't make them happy. In rural America, small business is particularly important. They employ more than half of all the workers. These small businesses are the heartbeats of our towns, our neighborhoods, our economy, but the trade war jeopardizes these businesses. Over 80% of business say that thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs, they could be forced to raise prices for consumers, and many say they would lay off employees. Protecting small business has never been a partisan issue. It shouldn't be now. It's a national priority. But what do small businesses hear from Donald Trump? Well, you should have listened to him yesterday. When asked yesterday if he'd consider relief for small businesses, the president waved it off. He said, they're not going to need it. Utterly condescending, utterly dismissive. Not going to need it? Tell that, President Trump, to the small business owners I just met with. Tell that to the nearly 370,000 workers at the smallest of small businesses who've already lost their jobs. He's in a bubble. Donald Trump has no understanding of what small business people go through. Senate Democrats are fighting back against Donald Trump's economic disaster. Today, my friend Senator Markey is introducing the Small Business Liberation Act, which I am proudly co-sponsoring, to exempt small business from Donald Trump's destructive tariffs. And this bill should not be a partisan fight. It should be a common sense. When 72% of small businesses say erratic tariffs are giving them economic whiplash, it's time for the Senate to act. Last week, Senate Republicans had a chance to stop this trade war, but they chose to stand with Trump instead. Well, we're giving Senate Republicans another chance now by working with us to take up the Small Business Liberation Act. Senate Republicans' refusal to stop this trade war makes them just as complicit as Donald Trump. Madam President, small businesses are the backbone of this country. It's time for Senate Republicans to grow a backbone and defend small business from Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, on Trump and the Constitution. Yesterday, Donald Trump was asked the easiest question in the world for a president. He was asked, "Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States?" Donald Trump's answer, "I don't know." It was appalling. He doesn't know if he's supposed to uphold the Constitution. He swore an oath to that effect. He might have forgotten that. It's hard to imagine something more un-American than Donald Trump, the sitting president, saying he doesn't know whether he needs to uphold the Constitution. As I mentioned, just over 100 days ago, he raised his right hand, swore in front of the nation to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. But no president has done more to disregard the Constitution and buck the rule of law than Donald Trump. And now he plainly admits it, almost proudly. One of the traits of a dictator, Madam President, one of the traits of a dictator is someone hostile to all forms of guardrails and accountability, who doesn't want to hear any dissent. Well, the Constitution is the ultimate guardrail, and Donald Trump thinks he doesn't need to obey it. Donald Trump is the embodiment of what the founders feared. Someone hostile, a president hostile to the rule of law, scared of debate, scared of opposition. He can't stand the idea of something restraining his power. So instead, he tries to crush anything he views as opposition. That's not strength. That's insecurity, deep insecurity. Donald Trump is putting our Constitution through the shredder, and Senate Republicans are totally silent. They're complicit. They're watching the Constitution be ripped up. They say nothing. Nothing. 10 years ago, Republicans would have been up in arms over the idea of a sitting president saying he doesn't know whether he needs to uphold the Constitution. Even a year ago, Republicans would have been up in arms had President Biden said, "I don't know if he should follow the Constitution." So where's the outrage from my Republican colleagues today? This much is clear. You cannot be loyal to both Donald Trump and the Constitution. The two are like oil and water. The American people deserve to know where Republicans stand with the Constitution or with Donald Trump as he rips it to shreds. On Newark Airport. For months, and now especially this week, Americans flying in and out of Newark Airport have experienced increasing delays and disruptions. Airlines are canceling flights. There's a shortage of air traffic controllers. They're relying on 1990s technology in 2025. One Newark air traffic controller even said that flying into Newark is, quote, not safe, unquote. Keeping the flying public safe and our national airspace efficient is the responsibility of Donald Trump's FAA. They're failing spectacularly. So today, I am demanding a full Inspector General Office investigation into what happened at Newark so these problems do not get worse or spread to other airports around the nation. I'm demanding that the OIG investigate, the Office of Inspector General, investigate answers to these questions. 1, why were Potomac TRACON, Philadelphia TRACON, and New York TRACON, the control towers in Washington, Philadelphia, and New York, excluded from the FAA's list of hard-to-staff facilities even when there was a clear shortage? They gave 13 other facilities bonus pay so they could attract more people. Why not New York, Washington, and Philadelphia where it's worse? Second, what's the plan to reduce decades-old technology and equipment and infrastructure at airports? One of the reasons Newark had a problem was a copper wire burnt. Did they ever hear of fiber optics over there at the FAA? And 3, what is the plan to quickly fill critical leadership vacancies? Members have been fired, in the FAA. Others have quit out of just disgust. Well, there's a lot of vacancies, especially in the higher positions. We need to fill them. What's the plan? Other airports across the nation could see similar problems like Newark if the FAA does not take this investigation seriously. And finally, on Mr. Bisignano to be head of the beleaguered Social Security Administration. We all know SSA, the Social Security Administration, is in a state of chaos, but instead of advancing someone who will bring order and stability to Social Security, Senate Republicans are backing a slash-and-burn billionaire CEO who will only pour gasoline into the Doge fires. Mr. Bisignano has zero experience in government or with Social Security, but he has plenty of experience in cutting jobs and downsizing. He says of himself, "I'm fundamentally a Doge person." That's who they want. Mr. President, American people, Republicans, you want someone who's a Doge person in charge of Social Security? My goodness. I can't think of a worse agency for Mr. Slash-and-Burn Bisignano to lead the Social Security Administration. That's his nickname, Slash and Burn. Every single Senate Republican who votes yes on Mr. Bisignano is voting yes to put Social Security benefits in jeopardy. Voting yes on Bisignano means voting yes on continuing the wave of office closings and mass layoffs. And what they're doing in Social Security, Doge and the Trump people, they're afraid to say they want to kill it, so they try to strangle it. Close offices, longer wait times, phone lines disrupted, emails disrupted. Mr. Bisignano's nomination is another reminder that Donald Trump's chaos is made possible thanks to the complicity of Senate Republicans. They could stop the attacks by Doge if they wanted. They could halt terrible nominees if they wanted. But every Senate Republican, every time, who has a chance to side with the American people instead sides with Donald Trump. They're doing it again with Mr. Bisignano's resignation. The Senate should reject the nomination of Mr. Slash and Burn, or else the chaos we've seen from Doge will only get worse.
This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast. You can watch live action from Congress on our YouTube channel at FedNet TV.